Guys, welcome to the John Show with John. I, of course, am your host, John. And if you guys are listening to this, you're subscribing, so we thank you in advance. I have a special guest today, Mark from Beep2Bleep Games. Mark, how are you?
Good.
So, Mark, do you know why you're here?
Well, I made a game, and you had some comments on it, which I don't actually, to be honest, I haven't heard them yet.
Oh, really?
So I watched a little bit of a Twitch stream.
Yep.
And so apparently you have some feelings about bounty for sharks.
Well, the thing is, like, I like to stream kind of oddball games, you know, once a week before we do our podcast, you know. And so one of our listeners, Krell, recommended that I play that game, Bounty for Sharks. And I saw it was on sale, which is good, right?
Yep.
Regular 99 cents. You have it for 98 cents.
Yep, save you a penny.
Thank you. And I have to say, I kind of had fun, you know. I know that there's a story behind why this game exists, though, right? Like, tell me about the game. Tell everybody about the game.
So I'm a hobbyist developer, but American McGee, who was one of the guys who made Doom with Carmack and Romeo,
sure, and Alice,
is hosted a game jam for his. He's got a game jam running through Thailand on pirate ships, but he did a little pre-jam, and it was supposed to be for 2 days. As it happened, I only got to work on it for about 30 hours in theory. So I spent about 10 hours just playing around in Unity, trying to make a first-person shooter with some upgrades. And I kind of hobbled together a couple assets and ended up using sharks because I can't animate, but their idle animation just kind of looked like they were swimming, so it looked okay as they would walk around.
Right.
And so it's actually It's a combination of a whole bunch of different assets, but one of them is it's actually a bunch of soldiers that have rifles and then they throw grenades. So what I did was I just hid the soldier asset and
Inside?
put the shark asset there, and I put the shark on the spine of the soldier. So whenever the guy goes to throw a grenade, he normally kind of twists his arm back a little bit and throws it, and so it makes the shark kind of deform and twist to the side. And I just kind of liked the way that it looked.
That's pretty funny. So can I ask a question? Because that was actually a question I have about the assets. So there are like asset libraries out there, right, where you can download the assault rifle and the shark and all that. Is that a lot of people are doing that, right? They released like indie games on Steam.
Oh yeah. I mean, so there's you hear the term asset flip, and there are This actually was the main thing is a UFPS, which is really old asset. And so that's where the guns come from, and it also kind of handles some of the damage. And then there's a cartoon asset, which is where the shark and I kind of repainted the ground came from. And then there's this tactical AI asset. And the funny thing was I'd actually bought these. In fact, the UFPS asset has actually been out of use for about 4 years. I bought most of these things about 6 years ago. The only recent one I bought was the sharks, and it's got a whole bunch of other kind of little animals. And so I just kind of decided to hobble them together in a couple hours. And, then I have to build spawners, and I had to build my whole upgrade system with the little capsules that when you go over, you spend coins, and I had to build the scoring system. But I'd done most of that stuff before, just in various game jams and for some of my other things.
Right.
I do have 2 other games on Steam, one of which I'm a little proud of. It's a baseball game, Home Plate Baseball.
I see that, and that's a VR game. I want to talk about that in a little bit. But let's go back to the shark game. So, like, this game was never really meant to be a game, right? You just did it for this event. And by the way,
well, I was kind of trying to win.
Right.
So, it's competition. So I was kind of trying. I was trying to make a good game.
Yeah.
But I like most developers, most of us, who kind of toy around with this stuff, we literally have like dozens or hundreds of these prototypes,
right,
that we just kind of kick out. And so at the end of the competition, I put it up on itch, and I decided, hey, I put stuff up on Steam before. It costs $100 to put it up, and I don't know if I'll make my money back. I'm about a third of the way there so far. But I figured, hey, I'll just go ahead and I did a little bit more stuff. Like I made it to where you couldn't crouch and you couldn't zoom, and there were a couple other things because in the oldest version, you used to really quickly be able to do like Superman and leap around the entire map, and you're going incredibly fast, and the sharks are going incredibly fast. But if you touched the right click button and you zoomed in, then when you zoomed back out, you were all the way back down at person speed. So you just were immediately overrun and killed.
I see. That was the first thing that threw me was I kept trying to right click, to zoom in. And obviously you can't. I did get used to it though. I mean, it's basically kind of like Counter-Strike, but your gun's up all the time, then it comes down when you shoot, right? So
yeah.
But I thought the shooting felt great. I mean, honestly, I kind of had fun with it. Is there lore here? Like, why are these sharks out? Why are they floating around? What's going on in this world? Is there a story?
I'd love to tell you that there was, but no, not particularly. So the theme of the game jam was bounties.
I see.
And so I decided, hey, as you kill sharks, you'll get money, and then you can spend the money. And like I said, I had all these, this asset has a whole bunch of different kind of animals. It's like poly animals, low poly animals or something along those lines. And the problem is if you put in something like a bear, it just stands there. And as it's moving around, it just kind of, it doesn't look like it's walking.
Right. And
of course, it's also really hard, it's classic game dev problem to match foot speed to animation speed. Mm-hmm. So you kind of hear about people like moonwalking because they're moving across the ground too fast. But with a shark, when it just kind of it looks fine because it kind of
floating,
looks like it's swimming.
Yeah. So I did have some complaints. The sharks can go through the wall, but I guess that's been fixed since.
Yep. I fixed that last night.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Because I got to one part, and I kept dying, and I'm like, where the fuck are the sharks, And I realized they were underneath me in that platform,
They go through the platform. Yeah, because I baked collision before I put any of that stuff in, so they it took a little bit longer than I expected to fix because I thought, oh, hey, I'll just make these platforms not allow collision to go through. But as soon as I baked it, it actually wanted to put it made it to where the sharks couldn't go through any of the trees. And so they actually were like pathing super weird because every one of those trees are little like logs on the ground, not the grass. There's like little logs on the ground, and they would want to path around all of those things. And so it looked really weird. So there's actually no easy fix for it. Online, I found people suggested what you do is you go into the tool and you erase all of the trees everywhere. And then you bake collision or bake navigation, and then you press Control-Z and they come back.
Oh, really?
So that actually took a while to figure out. And
That's
then
crazy.
I made another build and put it up on Steam. And Steam is incredibly good as a content platform because I put it up there and it'll start patching on your system if you already have it downloaded in like 10 minutes. So
let me ask you a question.
Gets pushed out there.
I've released games like on iOS and stuff, and there's a whole review process, and they might reject your binary, whatever. Is that the case on Steam? Are they reviewing every little update you push up there, or no?
Updates, no. So it has somewhat changed.
Yeah.
So if you see some stories about it, it has changed a little bit. So traditionally, what you have to do is you have to go through and you have to make the store page. So all the screenshots, the video. If you've done iOS, you know that there's tons of metadata you have to give them.
Right.
Like the game actually took me about 10 hours to make, and it took me probably about 10 hours to cook up all the screenshots and trailers and all that stuff, and all the text. So you have to put that up, and then you submit that as a store approval. So they approve what the store page looks like.
Okay.
You also upload a zip file. If you haven't seen Steam Pipe, it's this weird. They have their own custom way of uploading files. If you're under 200 megs, you don't have to use it though. So thankfully, mine zips up, and so you can just, or maybe it's under 500 megs. I forget which, but you can actually just put a zip, and then they'll unzip it and look for the exe, and they'll say, "Hey, is this the program you want to launch?" And you say yes. And you can also give them like a flags like dash Steam VR. You can build various options. So sometimes when you launch a game, you'll see kind of Steam will have a dialogue and have like different choices, or you'll say like run benchmark. So all those are just various build options or like launch options once you upload the exe. and then you submit the build. You submit the exe,
Right.
the zip file, and then you ask for approval on that. And once everything's done, you have to click the buttons and ask them to approve it. And they say it'll take up to 2 weeks. It's usually really quick. So the store team's actually a little bit slower than the build team. The build team will be done in about 1 business day. The actual people reviewing the exe. So
I see.
Presumably they launch it. Like I've seen in my analytics, you can actually see they do actually launch it.
Okay, I was wondering
they
that.
only play it for a couple seconds or maybe like a minute or two. And they do, of course, run a bunch of virus scans and stuff. Of course, you've heard the stories about occasionally Bitcoin miners get through, but they do scan that stuff. And then the store team will take about 3 or 4 days. Sometimes they'll take a little while, and then they'll approve it. And then it used to be as soon as that was done, you could click launch.
Right.
Now they don't do that anymore. Instead, you have to set it's like coming soon, and it has to be 2 weeks in advance.
Really?
So basically, once everything's done, you can set up a 2 week in advance, and that happened when whatever it was like. I can't remember the name of it, but it was like some game about like choosing to rape people or something.
Oh,
there was that controversy.
Wasn't there
an
active shooter game too that was like coming soon or something? Or?
So they were there. I think they were fine with. Well, there was one of those they were fine with. Hatred they let through. Gabe had to step in, but yeah, I think it was called Rape Day, and it was a game about like raping people, and so. And they just decided, hey, even though this doesn't technically violate our policies, for business concerns, we're deciding to not let this game on our platform. And at that point, they also instituted this 2 week coming soon policy, presumably so that, Steam detectives and other people would find the stuff and raise the concerns for them.
Right, before it gets out.
Basically take care of the political hit, and, it can blow up and take a little while. Because that game was in coming soon for a couple days, but that was only by choice of the developer. The developer could have pushed it out, but after that whole country is like I said, now it takes 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
So I'd actually finished the game it was about a month before it released. Was the last time I did any significant development on it. I added Xbox controller support, and that was about the only thing, and got rid of crouching and zooming after the game jam, but that was the only things I particularly did. I think I made it a bit harder.
So at the game jam, are you like you're there physically, like with a laptop in a corner, just working on this all day, kind of thing?
So this one was just online. So
it was okay.
Yeah. So this one I worked on a Friday night and a Saturday night because it was based out of Hong Kong time, so it ended at it's like noon on Sunday. It was 10 a.m. on Sunday. So I only really worked basically like Friday night and Saturday night.
Do you know what game won?
Yeah, it's a typing game. I didn't actually play it. So I'm glad you enjoyed this game. The funny thing was, so there were 63 contestants into the game jam.
Yeah,
and the top 60 got prizes, and I did not. I was considered not in the top 60. Yes. American McGee basically said, this is an asset flip trash or something along those lines.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, though, because there is some merit to these types of games, though, and I would imagine that Twitch and streaming can kind of take an obscure game that just has a weird concept, whatever, and just kind of elevate it, right? Hasn't it happened all the time?
Oh, yeah. I mean, more than anything, I mean, the honest truth is the reason I wanted to put it up on Steam was... if I put something up on Steam, I can get to it later. I've made a bunch of games for like Global Game Jam and various other game jams, and they're either Flash or Unity had that web player, or I made some HTML5 games in the early days of Unity's version of HTML5, and none of them work anymore. Flash is gone. Right. The web plugin doesn't work anymore. And for the first year or two of Unity's HTML5, that stuff doesn't work anymore because they changed the way Chrome changed the way they do sound. But if you make a PC build, it lasts forever. But like I used to have some that were up on some various game portals that now those portals are shut down. So the only way I can even go play those games is I have to go dig out like an old laptop and find the exe and copy it over and hope the hard drive doesn't fail. But if I'm willing to pay the $100 and put it up on Steam, I can play it forever. Because even when Steam shuts down, somebody's going to archive all of Steam, and If not, somebody will probably have pirated it and have it someplace I can download it later.
So are there a lot of like compatibility things you got to worry about, or does the Unity engine just take care of all of that when you build it?
The only build I made was for Windows.
Okay.
And Windows is absurdly robust. So if you've done some iOS, I know that you have been through incredible pain points, particularly that 32 to 64.
All of our apps vanished when they went to 64.
Yep. And every time they change permissions.
Right.
And but stuff from MS-DOS still runs. If you made an app, 35, 40 years ago for Windows, it still works with like no configuration required. So thankfully, with Windows, Microsoft never deprecates anything. Well, or they deprecate it, but they never outlaw anything. You might have to run in a sandbox mode or something. But with Windows, there's no compatibility issues. It's easy as heck.
You say on here anything after 2004. Is that just guessing? Per processor.
What do you mean?
For system requirements.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So those are just free text fields. You can just put in whatever you want.
You could. You could put Commodore 64 in there.
So I have no idea. But it should be pretty light. There isn't very much going on. I mean, it runs at. I have a G-Sync. Somebody had it. I saw somebody had a YouTube video. It was running at 2,000 frames per second on their machine. So
do you get analytics and stuff on this game? Like, like who's playing it, what they're using, and all that kind of shit?
I can. So I just hooked in Unity's analytics, and so it gives a little bit of information. I haven't actually dug into it very much. There's only been like 55 sessions.
Right. Does Steam provide you like that data or no?
Steam will provide a little bit. Steam
Okay.
will provide like median play times. It'll tell you how many people have played. I don't recall much else. I'm not. It'll show you which OS, but this one's only on one OS.
Right. Have you had any refunds?
Oh, a lot. Yes.
You have?
Yes. It's about a 20% refund ratio, which is pretty high. My other titles are also quite high at like 10 or 15%.
Okay.
Five's the average for most developers.
So let's talk about this home plate baseball. So this is a VR game. I just picked up a Rift S too, so I probably should try this. So tell me about it. What was the challenge like making a VR game? Any different or what?
So, I guess the story of that was the other title is Umpire Simulator, and I made an umpiring game when I was annoyed watching. I watched every game that the Royals played the year they won the World Series, and which is a lot of baseball games. And so eventually you kind of get annoyed when you see umps. So I decided, hey, let me just see how hard this is, and I've made it for like a bunch of different platforms. Initially, it was just on PC or just on like a web page, and that version's still up there on itch. But I made a VR version of it, and then I contacted Oculus, and I wanted to put it on Gear, and that was before Oculus Go, and they rejected me, and they wouldn't tell me why. And so, kind of I got back channel feedback of, hey, maybe you want something more than, just an umpire game. I'm like, well, it'd be free, whatever. Okay. So I just kept adding on more features, and I made a baseball game, I made a home plate derby, then I made an actual like 3-inning baseball game, then I made a shooting pitch, and I made a couple other things, catching. And I made it on Go, and I kept getting rejected, and I even went to their conference and talked with them, and they just won't tell you anything.
Right.
They basically will just tell you they don't like it and you should look at other products in the store. And I was like, well, there's no baseball games that exist at all. But anyway, I totally understand it. They're being heavily curated. On the Quest, they're being even significantly more. So basically the sole reason Home Plate Baseball came about was I got annoyed and decided to put it up on Steam. Because I kept going back and forth with them on trying to get it on Gear. But as far as developing any particular differences, there aren't really. If you only choose one platform, like Steam VR, it's actually pretty easy. It gets a bit challenging because I actually had, like I said, it was initially for, Go, and I had it for Gear, and I had an actual Oculus build, but they didn't want it in the Rift store either. And so you have to, there's just a bunch of little entrances, just little tiny things it's just a bunch of configuration. Once you get it working on one platform, then working on another platform, either you have like a bunch of things all at the same time, and you enable one, and you disable another one, or you make a second scene and you copy and paste stuff over. So it's a bunch of hassle. There have been some platforms. There's a tool called VRTK, a virtual reality toolkit, which is kind of supposed to abstract it, so you could just choose. So you could just use it, and then it would take care of handling all that stuff for you. But It's gone through. But it's completely community supported by like one guy, and so it works sometimes, it doesn't. I guess the big hassle with VR is it's absurdly unstable. The design conventions are, everything keeps changing. It's like everybody does crouching differently, or like, there's and locomotion was all over the place. But even the actual APIs themselves, like the actual calls to get a controller, just keep changing. And Unity keeps changing all the time. So stuff that worked 6 weeks ago might not work anymore. And same thing with like all the tutorials and code up online. So you end up just having to figure out a bunch of stuff on your own. But it's totally reasonable to do. And like I said, if you just pick one platform, like if you just pick Steam VR, which is
that what you did?
Most people
just
do.
Focus on that.
Well, I mean, that one, the Home Plate Baseball was not. It was I ended up adding Steam VR just so I could publish it, but it was initially all on Oculus's runtimes.
Gotcha. And is it hard getting like the feel of VR, like the swinging of the bat? Is there a lot of trial and error with that to make it feel realistic?
Yeah, it's just all trial and error. And actually, to be fair, the Home Plate Baseball is actually also on Quest. And that one's free because I can't get in their store. That's on a separate program called SideQuest.
I can say you have to sideload it.
Yeah.
So
I was actually I think the first game that went into SideQuest.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I contacted him because he was I contacted him when he was actually setting up the program, and got in there. And like about 30 people a day play it on there.
That's cool. Is it like a full baseball game? But just
Steam.
Is it? I know it's 3 innings, but is it legit just a real baseball game?
It's hitting only.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So what I have is it's 3 innings, and it starts off with, I think the opposing team has like scored 1 run, and then you have 3 outs to try to score, and then depending upon how good you do, so it, kind of rubber banding, then I randomly choose a range of how many points the opponent will get, and then you get a turn again, and then they get a turn again, and depending if you did really good in the first couple innings and it didn't get rubber bandaged too hard, you might actually win at the bottom of the second inning. But usually on the third inning, you have to make a couple runs.
This sounds rigged.
The bottom of the third inning, as soon as you make it, it's a walk off.
Gotcha. So did that game do pretty well for you? I see you have a couple of reviews and stuff.
I mean,
it must be hard.
So
There's so much competition, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's visually it was made for Gear, so it doesn't look great compared to PC VR.
Right.
But yeah, I'm relatively happy with it as a hobbyist. I've gotten about $1,000 for it from Steam, and it's also on Viveport, and I've gotten about $1,000 from Viveport. And it actually just, humorously enough, it actually just started picking up this week because spring training's happening. And so I wouldn't be surprised if sales started up, and now that baseball's starting up again, because you could definitely tell, like, as soon as baseball season ended, the sales went to 0.
Right.
They were kind of steady. They'd be up and down, and the sales also make a huge difference. So every time you get a chance to do a Steam sale, you make a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. But they only let you do those, the announced ones, and then you can do one every 8 weeks.
Right. That's pretty cool, dude. So, is there anything you can, I'm sure a lot of our listeners wish they could make their own game. Is there any advice you have for anybody out there?
In terms of making your own game, the first thing is just go do it. The other one is go to game jams. Now, we just passed it, but every year in January, it's usually Pro Bowl weekend. This year it was actually the Super Bowl weekend, but there's this event called Global Game Jam. And it's a local event all around the world. There's, I don't even know, like 500 sites or something. There's at least one in pretty much every single country that exists. And I think they even had one in Antarctica once. But it's, people physically get together on a site and they make a game. The sites I've been at, it's almost always Unity. And, you don't actually have to know Unity to make something there. But yeah, I mean, just download, I like Unity. Unity's super, I'm a web developer by day. And so I do C# all the time. And Unity's very, very easy if you have a C# background. Just because you're using C# to script the engine, which is, of course, itself C++. A lot of other people have easier time with Unreal if they have a C++ background. But, just download it.
I've screwed around with Game Maker quite a bit, kind of doing like 2D games. I found that to be pretty simple, too. That's a good tool.
You can get a lot done with Game Maker. Nuclear Throne was made in Game Maker. Binding Isaac was made. Binding Isaac is in Flash, ActionScript 2. But you can make really good games in Game Maker. It gets challenging if you get very complicated.
Right.
They've got the problem from people I know who've used Game Maker is once you get to a certain point, they've got like these weird. It's like either triggers or actions, but there's a certain number, and once you hit it, basically the engine becomes unstable.
Oh, is that right?
There's like 10,000 of them. And so a lot of people say you get to a point where you just like start going back and you start like kind of trimming stuff, figuring out a way to simplify your logic. And just, to me, it sounds like a hassle. But so I'm pretty happy with Unity. I mean, it's buggy and it has a bunch of issues, but it's free and it makes pretty good products. You don't have to pay anything until you make $100,000. And then,
is that right?
Yeah. $100,000 per year, and then you have to pay for their minimum license, which is $15 a month. And then once you make $200,000 or $250,000, I forget which, then you have to pay their pro license, which I think is like $100 a month. But at that case, who
cares? Right. And that game obviously is better for 3D games, right? Because Game Maker just does 2D, doesn't it?
Game Maker, does 2D. You can do 2D in Unity. There's a lot of. Probably the biggest one most recently is Ori, and Cuphead were in 2D. We're in Unity. You can do 2D in Unity. It's it used to be a real hassle. It's not anymore. It actually does 2D pretty well now. But it's C#, and it's very much a programmer first interface.
Right.
So it's a lot of script. You're in Visual. You're in a code editor of some kind. Anytime you want to do anything, unless you use, they've got these assets, and they've got one asset called Playmaker, which is kind of like Unreal's Blueprint, where it's visual scripting, where you're hooking block up to block up to block, which some people like. But if you're a programmer at heart, and you see that, and you say, oh, yeah, this could be useful, but as soon as I want to do a math equation, I just want to type the math equation.
So what do you think about like something like Dreams and all that, like on PlayStation? Have you tried that?
I haven't. I actually don't have a PS4. They're neat. The problem is, kind of what we've seen with. I don't know their EULA, but I'm sure you heard the controversy with
the game's
Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Right. It's the same deal. They own it.
Yeah. And man, the Warcraft 3 Reforged one, when you read into it, one of the things is they claim a moral right. And that word means they not only claim that they can use it. So if you make a Dota again, they could claim the name Dota. They could claim all the creation. They could claim not only the gameplay and all the names and any art, they could also claim that they made it by having they could say Blizzard created this intellectual property. And
listen, someone lost their job over Dota, dude.
Oh yeah.
they're probably looking back and going, "Whoa, we fucked up."
I mean, I remember the Half-Life and
Right.
the Quake modding scene.
Sure,
and,
Counter-Strike, but Valve was cooler, dude, because like they bought the Counter-Strike dudes. They didn't make them enemies. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, like the Natural Selection team came out and they got to keep all their stuff and
Right.
So yeah, I mean, Dreams looks awesome. It's really with how easy the tools are to make something that isn't in one of those, and how jerkish the terms and the EULAs and all that have become.
Right.
Because I did in Warcraft 3 days, I made some custom maps and I did some Half-Life 1 modding because that was the only because that was if you wanted to get something that people would play. Because I mean, as a hobbyist, the funny thing is you actually way more care about anybody playing your game than you actually care about making money.
Right.
And so those platforms, if you make a Warcraft 3 mod or something, you get a bunch of people that can play it. But I don't know. I mean, with Unreal and Unity being, and yeah, I mean, the thing that blows me away is I didn't expect, because since it was a relatively low effort to make this game and I put it up on Steam, I didn't expect that Steam would actually promote it nearly as much as it has. I haven't looked at it today, but yesterday, I mean, there have been 200,000 impressions, which means 200,000 people saw that little capsule.
That's pretty
with
cool,
the word
dude.
Bounty for Shark. Yeah, it's a lot.
It's free advertising. I mean, you paid $100, but that's pretty cheap advertising, really.
Yeah, and I mean, because the baseball game, I didn't intend to make it directly for Steam VR, but I mean, in total, I spent something on the order of like 300 to 500 hours making that, and it got, of course, the same amount of promotion. And the funny thing is, it got significantly less engagement, from the community. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because I know VR is 1% of the industry. So anything you make has to be 100 times better in VR than in non-VR to get, reviews and views and YouTube videos and, Twitch streams and that kind of stuff. But it was very surprising to me that, that anybody really paid attention to this Bounty for Sharks game. And it's encouraging in a way. It's like, hey, I should just make stuff and put it up there and see what happens. I mean, as a creator, you never know what the audience is going to react to.
So anything in the pipeline?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, I've been planning on getting around to making a I guess very large room scale VR game with kind of like dodging around and shooting. I've made some before, but I didn't. They didn't really finalize enough to feel comfortable with them. But yeah, this experience has definitely shown me that there's nothing wrong with just if you have something, just put it up on Steam, and if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere, and if it doesn't, you lost $100.
Right.
So yeah, it's been really neat, and thanks
cool.
for the interview. And,
yeah, Mark. So you want to plug anything? You want people to follow you on Twitter or?
Twitter at Beep2Bleep at Beep2Bleep BEEP 2 BLEEP, and the same on Twitch and Twitter and YouTube and website, and
cool.
Facebook.
And go check out his game, Bounty for Sharks, on Steam. It's 98 cents.
98 cents for a little while longer. I don't know when that sale. So yeah, 99 cents is the lowest possible price you can set. And I think the deepest sale you can put is to ever bring something down to 66 or 67 cents.
Is that right?
So if you wait, I will give you a strategy.
Yes.
That every time I have a possibility of putting it up for sale, the sale's going to go up by 1%. So next time in the next major sale, it's going to be 97 cents. So if you can hold out for another couple of years, you might be able to pick it up for like 92 cents.
Right.
But
you should do something for
now
Shark
it's
Week.
98 cents.
Do like a big Shark Week promotion.
I don't know. I'm not sure I'm going to do anything more on this title at all.
Oh,
I think
come
I
on.
might just. Come up, the funny thing
come
is,
up with some lore, get a story going. Why are these sharks here? People like sharks.
I played Nier Automata for 25 hours,
Yeah.
and in the last 2 weeks, and in that time I could have made 2.5 more of these games. It's
All right. Well, Shark Week, I think, is in July. So get ready for the update.
Yep, we'll see. Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, Mark, thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening, guys. John Show out.